I say again?
So basically, an introduction about what are your current research interests? Like, what are you researching into? When did you graduate from UTM? And a fun fact about you.
Okay, so I work. I'm interested broadly in like theoretical computer science. Sort of in my undergraduate, I did research in quantum information theory. And I guess currently, right now, I'm sort of I'm thinking about some things regarding like hardness of approximation, and sort of like constraint satisfaction problems. I graduated from UTM last year, and fun fact, I guess I'm from New Zealand, but I've never watched The Hobbit before, and people always find that very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. Next, we'll be moving on to Prof. Leader Dima. I think you're muted, sorry.
So hello, everyone. I mean, many of you know me, like it's hard to find anybody in the audience who does not actually. And also, like, for starters, congratulations to like all my former students who are actually in grad school right now. And I'm in grad school as well, like as some of you might know, but those who don't, I'm in grad school. I'm in the PhD program at the mathematics department in downtown. And my research interests are basically in computational topology and applied to neuroscience, right? So it's basically interdisciplinary research, and it involves mathematics. It also like involves computer science, and involves, guess what, neuroscience. So fun fact, I don't know, like, I mean, mostly, you know, like obviously like interested, you know, like in all these things like mathematics and computer science. And I also like read lots of science fiction. I love to travel. I love to cook. So yeah, that's all about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now introducing Hyukin. Oh, there's a little note that we have on the slide still there.
I think she got the picture. Yeah, so hi, my name is Gyogen, and I'm currently a second year MSc student at U of T under Systems and Networks group. I'm currently working on 2 projects at the moment, one which is related to file systems and another which is related to Intel's persistent memory, and just thinking of different ways to interact with it. I did my undergrad in UTM as a CS specialist a couple years back. So I think it was like, I guess it has been 2 years. Interesting facts. I don't do anything interesting, but I guess I collect like unhealthy amount of keyboards. They sound really cool and they feel nice to type on. So yeah, there's that.
Linear, clicky.
Yeah.
Is there a preference?
Never clicky, linear and tactile.
Cool. I'm a budding keyboard enthusiast, so you know, love to hear it. Next is Mahika. Hopefully, I'm saying all these names right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that was spot on. Hi everyone, my name is Mahika Futane. I'm a second year now PhD student at Cornell, although I recently moved out of Toronto because my first year was entirely remote. But I graduated from UTM in 2020. So yeah, and at Cornell, I do research in human-computer interaction and accessibility. So my research sort of bridges a lot of different areas of CS, like there's a lot of computer vision and ML, but also just like more theory-based and algorithms to like find efficient ways to develop assistive technologies for people with disabilities. So it's like a broad area, but mainly it's like human-computer interaction. And fun fact about me is I really like everything related to art. And I have a couple of paints right here, and I've been trying to paint fall colors. So that, although this year wasn't that pretty, but yeah, that's me. Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Love the colors in the background, to be honest. Next is Mutassem.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for the invitation. As you can see, my name is Mutassem Suleiman. You can call me Mo. I graduated from UTM about in 2018, I think. I went directly to do masters in mathematics. I planned to do a PhD, but things were not progressing in the way I wish. I was stuck on solving a lot of problems there. So I learned what I learned from mathematics, and I decided that I'm going to pursue something related to drug discovery and machine learning in chemistry. So now I'm doing a PhD in chemistry, and my main focus now is on protein chemistry and machine learning. What we're interested in is developing a model for predicting fluorine NMR shifts to solve some nice problems, which is pretty cool. A nice fact about me, or a cool fact about me, I solve most of the problems while I'm asleep. That's usually when I'm stuck on a problem, I don't try to solve a lot. I leave it, and yeah, it comes in my dreams. So yeah, that's interesting.
I'm familiar with the shower and toilet trick, but I didn't know there was a sleeping trick as well. So the more you learn and understand, I guess.
It is. I mean, if you sleep on your problem, you almost always will find a solution easier. That's what I find to be true as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Passing it on to Hannah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah, and I just started my master's degree here at U of T in computer science. Yeah, I'm supervised by Professor Jessica Bergner-Kars, working on research in continuum robots. And a fun fact about me is I really like rock climbing. And nice to meet you all.
Rock climbing is really cool. I've been meaning to go at one point, but COVID and all. Hopefully soon. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I muted myself. Passing it on to Sven.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for having me and thanks for organizing this panel. I'm Sven. I'm a third-year PhD student in computer science at U of T, and I'm with the same lab as Hannah, so we're both supervised by Jessica. And I guess one fun fact about my grad school history is that I actually started my PhD in Germany, and then 2 years in, Jessica got an offer from U of T and moved the whole lab here. So I kind of moved with her and transitioned during my PhD between two universities. And yeah, I'm happy to talk and discuss with all of you today.
Got a Mr. International with the transcontinental journey, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, anyways, thank you everyone for coming. Just as a reminder, I posted the kind of link before, so we're going to be using Slido. Sometimes that's a private message. So Slido, we're going to be using that. So if you have any questions, click the link there and post them, and we'll kind of get to them at the end, or I'll try to incorporate them during the conversation or something like that if they can be incorporated nicely. So without further ado, we'll just kind of get into some of the FAQ that we prepared. And so the way I'll kind of do it is we'll go maybe in introduction order or backwards, depending on whoever has something maybe interesting to say. But in general, we just want to keep it kind of in a conversational format. So feel free to say something if you have something to say. Yeah, so first of all, what is grad school? Anyone want to kind of shed some interesting lights of, stuff that people may not know? I'll start with bugging David.
So I guess it depends on sort of where you are and sort of what program you're in. So at least for math, and I think mostly CS, in the States, like you generally go from undergraduate, so like a 4-year degree, straight into your PhD, and the PhD is generally like a 5-year degree. So I think for Europe and Canada, and I think like Australia, New Zealand, generally what you do is you do like a 3-4-year undergrad, and then you go into like a 1-2 year master's, and then you go into a PhD program. And the PhD program's generally a little bit shorter as well, I think. And I guess, okay. And generally like the first few years, okay, so in the States at least, the first like 2 years, you still do coursework, but after that, you sort of start doing research. Anyone want to add anything more?
Yeah, just to give a context, with Canadian universities, I guess it is usually a 1.5 to a 2-year program. Obviously, like there are still courseworks here as well. So I spent my first year kind of tossing up coursework plus TA-ship plus, you know, a little bit of research, but didn't really get too much into it. And yeah, now I have more free time, but just wanted to say like that's also what David said is also kind of the case here.
Yeah, so as Kio and David mentioned before, I mean, when you get to grad school, like in the initial stage, like whatever, like this is true for both programs, right? Master's and the PhD program as well. In the initial stage, and if you're in master's, that's usually 1 year, at least for the math program at University of Toronto. You get to do some coursework, right? So it's basically just like courses. It's regular coursework. You have tons of homework. You have to do tons of reading. You have to write midterms. You have to write exams, right? And once you complete the coursework, I mean, you can start research even before. I mean, there is no clear cut, you know, like there is no clear cut where you start and when you start, and like, you know, you can start earlier, you can start later, right? But basically, you start getting serious about research once you finish coursework, right? So like at University of Toronto, the master's program, once you finish the 1 year coursework, usually people do like a research project in the summer semester, right? In the PhD program, things are slightly different. You have little more time to do the coursework, right? You have, I think, 3 years, but most of people, you know, like complete whatever they need to complete usually in the first year, right? And then you would have to participate in also like various research groups. Many departments run various research groups. I mean, and people join these research groups according to their interests. And these research groups are basically like classes, regular classes, but all the participants, they usually hold a talk, right? So like every week, you know, there is various talks that are held. Like, for instance, this year, like I'm participating at a class that it is called condensed mathematics, right? So basically take some mathematics, add water, you know, right? So that's basically every week, like one of us holds like a talk to the benefit of the others, and like we take turns. Otherwise, I mean, you basically do research until you reach to the stage where basically you can publish your research and like come up with, you know, like a version of your thesis, right? So if this doesn't happen, like then you are in the, you know, like in a position that it is usually known as ABT, all but thesis, right? Until you actually like complete your thesis. So basically, this is the path that everybody, you know, like everybody follows, right? It's not easy. I mean, it's not terribly hard either. You know, I would say it's something, you know, like in between. But One thing though, I mean, if you decide to get to grad school, you should be, like very serious about it. I mean, it's something to be taken very seriously. It's a full-time job basically, and yeah, that's what I wanted to share at this moment. Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that there's like two types of grad school. I guess there's like professional grad school, and then there's like research-based grad school. And I think this like sort of segues into your next slide that I looked at, but like, what is your intent of going into grad school? Like if you're going there to sort of, become a senior engineer or like get a higher paying job or something, then there's like more professional based masters where you could expand on your coursework and your knowledge of the subject that you want to study versus research based masters. And the US is like, doesn't really have that many research-based masters, whereas Canada has research-based masters. And then if you like research, you can continue on to a PhD, but they also have like professional masters. And a lot of what US has is professional masters. And that's like, several tens of thousands of dollars. So whereas research-based masters, you get paid, I guess, to do research.
So I guess there's like one question from the Slido, which I thought was really related. So I guess we could cover it before we move on. But a student asked, does everyone have to do research? Do all grad students conduct research? And what's the balance between coursework and research? And I think from what all of you said, the sense that I get is you have two options. So one is like you go for a research-based master's and one is a course-based master's. And then when you're doing a research-based master's, you need to do research and you will have a thesis. Whereas with the course-based master's, it's more courses. But at U of T, you will need to take courses with the research-based master's as well, but less courses than the course-based master's. Do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, this is true. Like at least at the math department, those who do research-based masters, they just need to take 4 courses, right? For like semester courses, basically 2 full credits or something. But if you do like course-based masters, you'd need to take 6 courses or to have 3 full credits.
Right, and I think there was the other thing when I attended the grad school info session last year, which was like they recommend doing a master's before you apply to a PhD at U of T because you complete that many credits before going to a PhD, and then you have less credits to do with PhD. For like students who are who got directly into PhD in the States, I was actually wondering personally, how is that different there? Like the number of courses you need to take.
I wanted to make a correction to what you're saying. Sorry. I think it really depends on the PhD program because I'm pretty sure with CS, even if you do the CS Masters, you do 4 courses, but then if you finish the Masters and you go on to PhD with the same university, you have to do another 4 courses. And I think like with PhD programs in the States, generally it's 8 courses. So no matter whether you do a Masters or you go direct entry PhD, you end up still doing a sum total of 8 courses, if I'm not mistaken, generally. So doing the Masters, doing the courses there doesn't excuse you from doing another 4 in PhD. It just tends to be, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
That is correct. Partial, that is correct because in the math department, what you do is there's actually, it's a research-based master's, but what happens is you have to take 6 courses. 2 core courses each semester and 1 elective course each semester. So after you finish your master's degree, you should have 6 courses in your pocket. And if you do that, you do a project in the summer, which is like a mini research course. Like it's not high level, it's just getting you a taste of what research is. And after you finish that, you have the option of whether continuing to a PhD or just getting your master's and leave. If you decide to continue with PhD, then you need to do, I think, one more set of core courses and 1 more set of electives, and that finishes the work there. Usually the first 2 years of like whether it's the direct entry 5 years program or master's then PhD 1 year, 4 years, the first 2 years are particularly more focused on a coursework. If you're lucky, you can do some research on the side. If not, then probably the last 3 years are usually reserved for doing research, which is like hardcore research. Yeah, so that's what I know, at least, about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically correct. Apart from the core courses, I think I'm not discussing the number here. The number is probably correct, but the kind of the core courses differs, right? Differs on what you want to specialize, right? So like people basically who would like to do whatever, like work, for example, in differential equations or something, they would actually have to take the core course of differential equations. Otherwise, you don't have to, for instance. I mean, so that's something to be, like considered as well, right? And also your topics courses should probably be related to what you want to do, like. And it's a good way, like topics courses are also like a good way to actually get to know professors and get to kind of like have a taste of their research, because professors usually, like in elective courses, they just like mostly present topics that they do research on or they have interests on. So basically you can pick on these and kind of like get some ideas, like what to do and with whom.
I hope you all are taking a little bit of notes, because there's a lot of information there. And so a lot to unpack, a lot to check. And this, I guess, is kind of to wrap it up. There is to say that there are a lot of options. There's the professional-based path. There's the research-based path. They have their pros and cons, and we'll kind of maybe explore a little bit more about them. And this kind of brings us into, I guess, the next slide, as Mahiko was kind of trying to segue us into, which is like, should you go to grad school, I guess? And kind of one of the Slido chat questions we have is, I guess, what are the benefits of going versus not going? What opportunities do you maybe unlock? And so I'll pass it on to kind of Sven this time around.
Okay, yeah, I think that's like a very important question that like everyone probably like asks themselves once they like go towards the end of their like undergrad. So I think for me, I mean, I did like my undergrad and my master's in Germany, so it was a little bit different there. I did like electrical engineering, bachelor's and master's in Germany. And the way the system is in Germany, like almost everyone I knew did like a master's at least in engineering. So it's like very different to here. So I didn't have like these questions when I applied for a master's, but I think it's very relatable for like going into a PhD or not. And I think you should only really like consider going to grad school if you're really interested in research, in my opinion, because I think if you know that you want to work in industry, I'm not sure if it's like adding like too much on that. But I think that like really depends on like the field, of course, and like your like course of study. So I don't think you can like have like a generalized answer for that. But yeah, I think you need to be like really interested in like research and like really want to like pursue a specific like research topic over the course of like several like years and be motivated to do that. And if that's a yes for you, I think you should definitely go to grad school and like do it. But if you are like not really interested in that, I don't think like grad school might necessarily be the option to go for. But again, that's like my personal opinion, and I'm happy to hear what others are thinking about that.
I think there's an element of seriousness of going into grad school. You have to be very serious if you want to go there. It's not like, oh, I don't have any options. I didn't get any internships. I didn't get any job offers. So my alternative is grad school. That's incorrect way of thinking about grad school. My best advice here, if you want to know whether you want to go into grad school or not, is indulge in research at early stage. So I know some of you might be fourth year already, but if you are in third, second year, there are tons of research opportunities for like undergraduates that allow you to check how research is in general. For example, ROP, which is like research opportunity program offered by the Dean Office. There's the NSERC award for those who are national students. And there's University of Toronto Excellence Award, which is, I think, accommodating international students as well. Usually these guys or these awards or programs, you apply for them early January, February of each year, for either for the summer or for their next academic year. And through this research opportunity, you will figure out whether this is something for you or not. Of course, it will be at small level, epsilon level, okay, very small, but then you slowly progress in a way that you realize that, yeah, this is something cool or this is not something cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll pass it to Naz for a couple of questions relating to this.
Thank you. So there were some questions on the Slido which were related that I wanted to mention. One of the most common ones I'm seeing is, how do you decide what you want to focus your research on? Like, how did you decide that this is the topic you were interested in for your master's degree or for your direct PhD?
I can provide some ideas because I just decided on my research topic. I don't know if you're calling on people.
Oh no,
No,
just,
go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that are factors in your decision. I mean, in an ideal world, your research project would be something you're passionate about and you feel that you can really make a dent in. But sometimes that's hard to say because there might be a lot of things that you're passionate about or interested in, and there might be some factors of like maybe this is beyond your current skill level or it will be a push. Obviously, you want to push yourself, but you also want to make sure you have infrastructure around you that can support your exploration. So in addition to what's interesting and motivating for you is going to pull you through the really difficult times of research. So that's like number one. But other things to consider when you think about a topic are kind of, does this project or topic, is it encapsulated by a larger body of work that can extend into this if you want to pursue this as for long-term research? What about, do I have the resources I need? If you have like we're in the field of robotics, do I have the resources I need to do the experiments I need to validate this topic? So you want to have some real world considerations like this. Is there someone in the lab who's doing something tangentially related who I can have discourse with and kind of support each other? That's also very important in continuing your studies. Also, does your supervisor, are they invested in the topic, right? Obviously, you'll work together with your supervisor, but if it's a topic that your supervisor maybe doesn't have as much experience in, and there's no collaborators around who can offer the expertise and the support in that realm, maybe it's not a great path to follow if you're new to the topic. But again, you consider if you're super motivated a student, that you can overcome those barriers. But I think like these are things to consider. Yeah, at least what I was considering when I was choosing a topic.
Yeah, like I'd like to say, to support Hannah's, discussion, and it's absolutely true. I mean, that basically you need to line up your interests with your department's interests in terms of research, right? So you might be interested on a specific topic, but the department where you are applying it might not necessarily have the necessary resources to support you, right, in that research. It's also, choosing, the correct supervisor who to, so to speak, it's very important, right? So we should choose a person who is supportive to the ideas that you would like to develop, right? And also, the supervisor should also basically have, good expertise in whatever is your narrow field of interest, right? Otherwise, it is very difficult, right? You basically are on your own, right? Which is not great. I mean, you might have a great supervisor, but if the supervisor doesn't really have the necessary expertise, it's basically hard for them to support you, right? And to basically provide, whatever you need, right? Provide some guidance, provide literature, or certain suggestions that basically, yeah.
And another related question is, like, we've talked about research topics and we've talked about like we've touched and we'll touch more on finding supervisors. But one of the questions is, what if someone doesn't have undergrad research experience? How hard is it to get into a master's degree or a direct PhD without that research experience? And is research scary?
I have seen a bunch of examples of people who had absolutely no research experience and went into doing masters and PhD, whether it's direct entry or just masters. Usually people begin with masters because they're scared of what could come their way. And then if they would like, they just upgrade to PhD. So I don't think it is absolutely necessary to have some research done before. It's a plus, it's a major plus, 100%, yes. But is it one of the requirements? I don't believe so, especially in the programs that I worked with. So yes, you don't need research. And is research scary? Of course it is. It goes without saying. It's called research is because you're trying to find questions that haven't been answered before. And you're probably gonna get your hair gray or lose your hair, or have sleepless nights. So many things that can happen when your research is not going in the direction that it's going. And if you know that it's going smoothly for a couple of weeks, then you probably know that there's something wrong. So you have to stop and ask yourself, am I really going in the right direction? So to conclude, you don't really absolutely have to have research experience. And yes, research can get very, very intimidating, but that doesn't stop you from going forward. Just one more quick thing that I want to say is when you pick a research area or research interest or something or a topic that you want to work with, pick something that you can work on even if you're tired or even if you have no energy. Something that gets you excited, that doesn't require forcing yourself to do something. Because if you pick something that gets you excited and you can work on without having so much energy, then you're probably on the right track of getting good stuff. And most importantly, your supervisor is what matters the most.
The other question I had, oh no, go on, Mahika, go on.
Oh no, just to offer a more balanced perspective. Yes, research is scary, but sometimes it's not. In a way that I feel like more like research is sort of a mindset that develops over time. And we talked about like picking topics and stuff, and that can be like very intimidating. But at the same time, it's like very flexible once you sort of enter the realm of research. You do a project and you do a research topic, there's a lot of transferable skills, even if you don't end up expanding on that topic more and more, and you can sort of use these skills and this knowledge of how to do a literature review or how to write how to ask questions and how to, do experiments or like run experiments, write papers. And these are very transferable skills that you learn through doing research in any topic, which will eventually sort of lead you to a topic that you are passionate about. So I do think research is more of a mindset. So in that way, you're sort of learning as you're going, and it can be intimidating, but there's a lot of times sometimes where I don't know what I'm doing, but it's okay because I talked to my professor and they're like, well, I don't know what we're doing either, because you're both sort of entering this realm together. And in that way, it's like intimidating, but comforting.
That's even more scary, to be honest. If they have no idea what they're doing too, it's like, you don't know. It's more scary for me that way.
And just like a last question, I guess, that I had for this topic before Akira goes, I need to talk about applications, is if someone doesn't have any research experience and they're like in third or fourth year, where they actually third year you still have time, but like fourth year where they need to start applying soon and they don't have someone at the university who can get them that research experience, what would you recommend when they're trying to think of what they can go into? Is it just courses that they see from the courses that this is an area that they would be interested in, or how could they get started?
I guess you could poke into what I'm assuming you have universities that you want to apply to at that point, right? Especially if you're fourth year, you need to send your applications real soon. So if that's the case, you could kind of look into what professors are kind of researching in the universities that you're interested in, and see and read up on it and see if that's something that you want to also help out with or not.
Yeah, I just wanted to like quickly add, like University of Toronto provides you with access to like a lot of research papers. So if you go to like any almost research database, like ACM or even IEEE, you could basically access their papers for free because U of T pays for it. Yeah, and the other thing is we also have research groups. So if you don't want to like research completely yet, you have at least 2 research groups at UTM. One is for ML, one is for CSED. So you kind of have an idea about what's going on there too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something. Like, I don't want to stress any like 3rd, 4th years out, but I really do think research is like extremely important for applying for grad school. Like, I think you have to think of this from the like the graduate committee's perspective. Like, they're going to get thousands of applications, and most of these students are going to have extremely high grades. Like, what distinguishes you from like graduate schools can only accept like around 50 students out of this huge pool. Like, what distinguishes you from like all of these thousands of students? You have to rely on your research experience or like recommendation letters from professors. So like if you're in 1st or 2nd year and you're thinking about applying to grad school and you're dead set on a PhD, I think you should start early. And you should start reaching out to professors or applying to programs and getting the research experience in, because I think it's like, I mean, yeah, your chances are, I think, are low if you don't have that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I always think about it almost in a similar way of like, people do like the job internships before they go for a job. It's kind of similar where you want to get a taste, get a bit of experience, makes you stand out a little bit. Yeah, so I wanted to tackle one of the things that people keep asking, I guess, is about like applications and like how that all works out. So I wanted to tackle that a little bit. And I know we have a nice variety of people there. So maybe David, you could talk a little bit about how the international student would approach the application process versus like Mahika, you also went internationally, and then everyone has kind of their own different kind of perspective. So maybe talk about how that a little bit went, and if there were any specific struggles you had to encounter along the way.
I'm not sure if there are much differences between like applying as an international student or applying as a domestic student. So, I mean, yeah, like, so I think most countries don't have restrictions on this. So like, but for example, if you're applying for like an undergraduate research program and then there are more restrictions because of funding reasons or whatever. But usually grad school doesn't have like restrictions on if you're an international student or not. I think some schools might have like an international student quota, so it might be harder for you to get into certain schools. Okay, then I guess I can talk about like how like what my application process was like. So I think like maybe 3 months before the deadline, I started compiling a list of schools, and sort of and also reaching out to my the people who I wanted to write my recommendation letters. And then like from each school, I tried to pick out a few professors that I might be interested in working with and trying to understand sort of what research they do. And started writing many drafts of your personal statement, which is extremely time consuming. And yeah, I don't know. Much else to say.
Yeah, maybe Mahika, you can kind of talk about the GRE and stuff and pick up where David left off.
Oh yeah, sure. I think the only difference, I guess, and like one of the main differences is that if you apply somewhere outside of U of T or outside of Canada, you have to do a GRE, which was really strenuous. I blocked out that part of my experience from my memory, but trying to do these GRE scores, doing a lot of prep. I think I did my GRE twice to like increase my scores. And turns out at the end of the day, like research experience counted for a lot more. So it seems it's like more of the GRE seemed more to just be like a checklist. Like you've done this, you have basic competency in reading, writing, and math, and then like a specific subject if you need a GRE for that. But it's definitely like important. I think because of COVID, they might have waived the GRE requirement for a couple of courses. Sorry, a couple of universities. I know MIT does not require a GRE, so maybe that's why I didn't mention it.
Most schools did not, which is really, really
I mean,
great.
I know that this year Cornell doesn't require it either. When I applied, they did. But, and I think in terms of like the research university application process, my process was more like going deeper than wider. I kind of dislike it when people say it's like a numbers game or something like that, because it's really not. It's like every single university I applied to, I spent at least 2 to 3 weeks researching all the professors there, the faculty there, where is the research headed, what kinds of work that are they doing in the future. And every week I would like write one email to a professor about a paper I read of theirs or something like that. Because I really wanted to go to a university where I would feel comfortable in the research environment and also really excited about the stuff that they're working on. So I think I had compiled a list of like 5 or 6 different universities, and I tailored my SOP, the statement of purpose, which is a really important part of the application process, to these specific universities, talking about why I'm applying to this university, what is, what I've done that sort of prepares me to succeed, and what I've done that sort of prepares me for this university. And not only what I can give to the university, but also what the university is doing currently and what the faculty are doing currently that will help me get to where I want to be and this like larger goal and research motivation and purpose that I have. And I think the SOP in that way was really important. I think we can like dig into that definitely in the future, but getting letters of recommendation was also really important. And these letters need to speak to your research ability, or at least your ability to be curious, be driven, be passionate about the topics you're interested in. Even if it's in a different topic, that's okay, but academic references matter a lot. I know there's a couple questions, and Naz, you have your hand up, so I'll stop.
No, I wanted to complete talking. I was just gonna ask after that.
Oh yeah, you can continue. Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing a lot of questions on the Slido about how much do grades matter in the application process? Like if your GPA, like how much did that matter? Is it the only determining factor?
Luckily, it's not. It's not the only determining factor. Usually, what matters the most in most places is the final 2 years of your transcript. Yes, having a good transcript all the way from the beginning is good, but usually the final 2 years are what matters the most. If you want to do a direct entry in PhD, I think the least you should have is an A- overall GPA, or like 3.7 equivalent. If you want to do a master's degree and then transition into PhD, I think you need to have above B+ average final year. And that's, of course, not competitive, but of course, you just need to be higher than that. But that's the minimum requirement, I would say. There's a lot of information that I think students need to get to know. First and foremost, you need to pick up your references right away. Like, find out who your referees are, like very early stage, and you need to let them know as soon as you can, and you have to tell them that how many places you'll be applying for and so forth. And the best referees are going to are people who you took courses with, who did very well in, who had multiple interactions with, people who supervised you in research projects, people who had direct interactions with you, and so forth. So preparing these research references or these referees or having them knowing that you'll have to submit a reference letter soon is the most important piece of the entire work. A statement of purpose or letter of intent, you can cram that, but I don't recommend it. But this is something that you can quickly go through. You can apply to as many schools and then figure out which ones you will be taking or you'll be heading to. But there are things or variables that is not within your control, and these are the referees and stuff. So whatever is not within your control, you have to get this going first and getting them to know it first. And then what's under your control, you can manage it quickly. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, what excellent response, like blew my mind. There's a couple other slides, but I just want to kind of quickly skim through. So we kind of touch over all of these points about in terms of research prep you can do and some of the reference letter stuff. So I'm just going to quickly go towards the Slido so we can take a couple of the questions before we end in a couple of minutes. So we kind of covered this. David, there's a little quick question for you. How'd you get into MIT? You can tackle that.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. So let me say that, like, okay, so before there was a question about, like, you know, should I should I go to grad school or not? And at least I think if you're gunning for a PhD, if you're sort of in your later years of undergrad and you're asking that question, I'd say it's already maybe too late. To be completely brutally honest, I think like applying to grad school, like especially if you want to get into like the top grad schools, it's like you have to play a certain game. Like similarly, like if you want to get into top undergrads from high school, you have to play a certain applications game. You know, you have to sign up for all of these extracurriculars and sort of boost your application. And I think it's sort of similar when applying for grad school, in the sense that, like, if you're a very strong student, you might be extremely, you know, you might know your coursework extremely well. You might be like really strong, like academically, but if you don't have anything to show for it, then you're not going to get picked out of the you know, thousands of applications. And so, like, so for example, for me, I came into first year undergrad and I knew I wanted to go to grad school, and I started talking to professors, and I tried to get in research extremely early, and you know, and I was thinking about like sort of like throughout my undergrad, this was on my mind and I was planning for it. So like you have to be very serious about it, I think, and sort of talking to my peers here, like this was sort of their mentality as well. So I don't know, maybe my sample is a little bit skewed, but this is what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then I guess we'll leave. So I think the second question is something that I think is really very applicable, at least in the CS sphere, in terms of working a little bit versus not. Like my cousin, for example, she did a bit of work and she's currently doing computer vision in her master's. And so I was just kind of going to ask, I guess, Kyokan, I haven't bugged you in a bit. Would you advise to go to grad school or work a bit for CS, for example?
I think if you're uncertain about what you want to do, like, you know, you're in your third, fourth year and you might want to do research, but at the same time, you know, you're not sure. If you're in that position, I think focusing on going to industry first and gaining some experience there, and then, you know, later going back to applying for master's or PhD is not a terrible idea. I know like a couple of PhD students that I work with who are, you know, much older than me because they went into industry first and then came back. And yeah, yeah, I'm not, I don't, it's very dependent on, you know, what you want to do and stuff like that. So
Just to add on to elaborate, I think part of it is also showing your ability to achieve in different ways when we're talking about grades. Grades are one way to demonstrate that you have what it takes to be independent and take a hold of your learning and execute. But maybe undergrad wasn't such a great time for you, or like like that learning model doesn't work well. So you can demonstrate excellence in your job. So if you go to do a job for 2 to 3 years, you can demonstrate excellent there and then reapply and then use that as a stronger leg to stand on for your application. Whether that's also past research experience or experience like leading a technical project or all these things. So I think like that's how I would also like think about it too. It's not the end of the world if your grades aren't good and you can't get into grad school now. If it's something you want, there's definitely ways to get around that.
Any other remarks?
I think there was one about like recommendation letters. Like we talked quite a bit about recommendation letters. We also talked about like going to industry versus like going to grad school. So just briefly touching up on recommendation letters, how do you get recommendation letters, find good ones? And then if you are going to industry, how would that impact things? Like if you have any idea.
Who are you asking?
Oh, anyone.
I can go. So for your reference letters, it really like how do you get a good reference letter is like you do good work and you leave a good impression on the people you work with. That's how you get a good reference letter. And you also be honest with your reference about what you want from that reference. So be transparent about what schools you're applying to. You can discuss maybe some, depending on the reference, some will be like, I don't want to talk about it and they'll write it completely separately. Some professors will ask you, or some people will ask you to give them a draft of things that you want to be included, and then they will like edit it or like make their own corrections, kind of save them some of the mental effort to write it. But yeah, both of these ways work well. If you're asking your industry mentor or your supervisor in a work setting to write one, that's also really great if you demonstrated technical excellence. Maybe coach them a bit on some things to emphasize. So like there's some things in industry that don't really translate well to grad school, but some things they're universal. So maybe ask them to focus on those things, like your ability to be independent and lead your project on your own, technical ability to execute, things like that. So yeah, but overall, like good references come from doing good work. And also maybe just keep an eye out for like, you won't be able to see the reference letter that they have. That's actually not supposed to be how it works. But if you feel that your reference may have trouble expressing their thoughts about you in words, maybe you can offer to do a draft or kind of give them a big picture. Because even though they have a good impression of you, doesn't mean that they'll execute that well in writing. Writing is a difficult task. So maybe find ways to discuss and help this a bit.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Akira, do you want to do some last remarks?
Yeah, no. So there's a bunch of other questions that people were asking. We unfortunately don't have time for all of them, but I will try to bug some of the panelists, maybe if we can get a FAQ doc and some of those answers compiled. So keep your eyes out from wherever you were seeing this announcement posted. We'll send them out on those channels. So yeah, Mutassim said in the chat, if you have any more questions, you can bug him. Any other grad students here who are also okay with any emails, you can put your email in the chat and people can maybe message you. In terms of later things, we will have, MCSS will have a shape of data talk, which talks about topological data analysis. If you're interested in CS stat or math, I'm pretty sure there's something for you there next week. So definitely come out for that. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful for everyone who attended. Thank you so much for coming. Both, especially big thank you to all the panelists. Really appreciate it.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure. It's really helpful.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
so much.
I'll put my email in the chat for sure. If anyone's applying to a PhD program, just want to know more or like have more personal questions about like your own journey, because PhD especially is like a very individual journey, and what you're bringing to a PhD application is very specific to like what you've done. And sometimes things can be very, like you can have a very non-traditional path, and almost everyone I talk to has had a very unique path to how they ended up in grad school. So if you ever need help in like kind of translating that path into an application as well, feel free to reach out. I'll write my email in the chat.
Thank you so much. This was really useful and everyone was so helpful.
Yeah, I think we can end the recording right about there.